I was born in East London and I've lived here for the last 22 years, just the other side of Stratford, so I'm very much, this is my home, and I've worked here, I suppose, after I left the university since 2002, so what's that, 14 years. First of all, in community organisations like Bromley Bow Centre, Leaside Regeneration, Poplar Harker, so community-based organisations that were sort of driving regeneration out of local neighbourhoods, strongly led by local people. And then I moved here in 2011.
And what do you do here?
So I have a terrible title called the Executive Director for Regeneration Community Partnerships, which is a terrible long mouthful. But our job really is to, or my team, is to be, I suppose, the core within our organisation and make sure that everything that everybody does in our organisation is aimed at fulfilling the promise of the Games, which is that the purpose of having the Games here is, to quote, the regeneration of the entire community for the benefit of everyone who lives here. So it's about people and not just about the things we build.
So could you say something about the key priorities in your role
I
at the corporation?
I often answer that with a story, actually, which was one of the days in the week that we opened the park. We started opening the park, which was, 2013, and it was about, actually, probably almost this day, but actually it was bright sunlight, and I was up in the north of the park by Tumbling Bay, which is the children's playground, and Timber Lodge, which is the sort of cafe and community space up at that corner of the park. And all of this has sort of been designed beautifully and very carefully, and the play park is sort of health and safety as much as you would want, and all the paths up to it, great attention to the detail of the gradients so that, you know, wheelchair users and elderly people and small children and people with prams could use it very easily. So it was very, very carefully designed, and I think very beautiful, and it turns out well loved. And I was showing some people this, and a coach drew up just on the edge of the park, and about 50 silver hairs, men and women in their 70s and 80s, I guess, got out the coach and they wandered up the path very carefully, picking their way through all this sort of carefully designed, safe environment. And then they flung themselves down this big slide that we have in the middle of the play park. And they didn't just sort of do it one at a time. In twos and threes, they flung themselves down this slide. And so I think that sums up the role of the Development Corporation, which is that we're here to provide a place and a framework in which people can play. Now, they might be people visiting the park to play, or using the venues in order to play or to be serious and to compete and to train. But actually also they might be a business, like the businesses that are coming to here east, who are here to play in the sense of innovate, experiment, develop business ideas. They might be the universities that we're bringing in order to obviously research and develop, experiment and play, or they might be, you know, the Victoria and Albert Museum and Sadler's Wells, the cultural institutions. In all of those environments, our role is to create a place which is beautiful and works, and which people can then build relationships with each other and do extraordinary things in the future. And of course the housing is also absolutely critical to that, because a rather large number of people, you know, thousands of people, in the end some sort of 2 or 3 tens of thousands of people will come and live here, and it needs to be a wonderful place that they also can live in. So our role is to create the place, but also then make the relationships between incoming people and the neighbourhoods that are already here, and the businesses that are already here, the universities that are already here, and sort of there'll come a point where we kind of walk away from all that and think, okay, that sort of seems about right.
Thank you. Newham is an area, Newham's not the only legacy borough, but Newham is an area with very high scores on deprivation indicators related to employment.
Yeah.
High numbers of people on low pay,
Yeah.
high levels of
Yeah.
unemployed. So what's happening on the park? What are you doing to make sure that there's a match between the kind of jobs and enable local residents to access those jobs?
So we see as what we're doing on the park very much matched into what's happening in the broader area of Stratford and Hackney and the surrounding area. And we're sort of we're part of a step on a journey. So we knew, you know, back before the Games, we knew that the first thing that was going to happen here would be Westfield, lots of retail jobs, lots of entry-level retail jobs. And we worked very hard, we worked very hard, Newham worked very hard, the other boroughs too, but particularly Newham, because it's in Newham, to make sure that local people got many of those jobs and went into those jobs. And that was a really important for a couple of reasons. First of all, it was very confidence boosting, I think. You know, as I said, I live around here, and we're used to being sceptical about whether any of the jobs that arrive go to local people. Canary Wharf is our sort of biggest example of where that doesn't happen. And so people were very sceptical about whether local people will get jobs at Westfield, and they did, and that was very important. That happened before the Games. Second thing that taught us was the approach of Newham Workplace to getting local people to those jobs, which is you start with the employer. So you understand what jobs are coming, when they're coming, what kind of jobs they are, and what the employer is looking for. And you prepare people so that when they walk through the door at interview, they're ready for those jobs, and the employer's going to want to snap them up. So it's very based with the employer. So then when we as the Development Corporation sort of started operating in 2011, 2012, we adopted the same approach. And the first thing we had, the only jobs we had, were construction jobs. And as you know, construction jobs are something that actually local people often don't aspire to, and quite a lot of young people don't know what a construction job is beyond carrying bricks. And of course we know that they're much better, broader, deeper, you know, jobs, all sorts of jobs. And so we worked very hard with our contractor, BAM Nuttall, at first, to set quite fierce targets, which we broke in the end, for the numbers of local young people coming into apprenticeships. Sorry, coming into jobs, but also young people coming to apprenticeships. And so we did quite well at that. Got a bunch of, in the end, 60, which is a lot of young people for the size of contract, as our apprentices in construction, while we were transforming the park from being an Olympic park, Olympic venues, to a park for the future and venues for the future. And they became our great champions. They've gone off, they've got people working on Crossrail and building houses and all sorts of things. And then we've carried that on with our building contractors. So Taylor Wimpey, who are building Chobham Manor, again, big emphasis on apprentices and on local employment. And then once we've built some things, you know, we're operating a park, we're managing some venues. So we've worked very closely with the employers at the Aquatic Centre, at the Copper Box, very closely with our contractors on the park to make sure that they employ high levels of local people and that they also build apprenticeships into everything they're doing. Now actually I think so that again that breeds confidence, but now we sort of stand on the threshold of probably the biggest challenge, which is that we've got here east in the north-west corner of the park, the old Press and Broadcast Centre. We've got, you know, digital technology, we've got BT Sports Studios, we've got media, a lot of very high-skilled jobs coming in there. We think 5,000 or so jobs in the end. Once we get University College London in, and London College of Fashion, Victoria and Albert Museum and so forth, generating businesses, higher skilled jobs. We've got Finance Conduct Authority, Transport for London, have offices here, there'll be others, higher skilled jobs. So the real challenge now is to make sure that local people, as the skills base rises in the jobs that are available, also can get into those jobs and into the jobs that they kind of open the gateway to. So that's a big challenge for us now.
Could you give us some examples of some of the things that you'll do to bridge that gap?
To
bridge the gap with skills and the higher...
yes, well, one of the things is that we've sort of started to do is knocking on doors of people like yourselves, and of course Birkbeck, and you know, one of the reasons that we supported very strongly the partnership between UEL and Birkbeck here in Stratford is that you're both organisations that in different ways are very good at working not only with young people who are, you know, studying full time, but also with part-time students, so people who are already in work, to raise the level of their skills. So, you know, to make them a higher skilled retail worker if they're in Westfield, or to kind of change the focus of their skills so that, you know, you may have sort of cut your teeth working in John Lewis or something, but now you're ready to think about a career in another sector, maybe in technology, digital media, whatever it is. So I think one of the things, the answers to your question is to lean very heavily on the relationships we have with those who prepare young people for higher skilled jobs, whether they people like you who've been around or are, Birkbeck who are sort of recent arrivals, or UCL or London College of Fashion, Loughborough University who are busy coming in. And I think one of the things I've been talking about this morning is how we, you know, really showcase the apprenticeship offer here east at this time, critical time, as those businesses move in and the jobs become available.
Thank you. Could you say something about the legacy venues and how these are benefiting local residents? Have you got data on the Aquatic Centre, for example?
Yeah, so the Aquatic Centre is very heavily used. I think from memory, the 800,000 people in the last year of operation, heavily loaded towards local people. Competitive prices, so we said that the price point would be within the same zone as on the same range as the leisure facilities you'd find in the local boroughs, and that's what we've done. I mean, again, actually, I'll answer you this little story. I was in a meeting. I'm pointing because it's over there, the Aquatic Centre. We had a management team meeting or something there in one of their boardrooms, just to get out of here and sort of see what was going on. And as I walked out afterwards and went to the exit, a group of school children came out of the changing room, being teenagers, and they were shouting and doffing each other over the heads with kit bags, and being kids. And the teacher was sort of slightly shouting at them, I have to say, to keep them in order. And I don't know if you know it, but as you go from the changing rooms to the exits, you pass the big glass wall which separates the training pool from the competition pool and the diving pool. And as they came, this rowdy group of kids, being teenagers, past it, they just suddenly absolutely fell silent and rapt attention. They all looked there, and the teacher started engaging with them on, I don't know what, teaching them something. And the reason was that Tom Daley was on the top board teaching someone to dive. As you know, Tom Daley, great British Olympian, not only himself trains there, but he runs his diving academy there and teaches people to be divers. And that for me was, it sort of is beneath the numbers of the 800,000 and all that. Actually, what we've always wanted to create in these venues and in this place is those moments of inspiration, or those moments of learning, where somebody like Tom Daley, who's made it and is the best, inspires something in people who aspire to be the best. And again, that's a sort of a sporting moment, but actually, what we want in the park is for there to be many of those moments. So I would want young people from around here to go and walk into the BT Sports Studios as you can, and there's another glass wall there, and for some, and look at it, and for some that will be the moment they know that's what they want to do. Or they'll see the engineering department, there'll be some heavy duty engineering that UCL will bring in, and they'll look at that wave tank or that wind tunnel, and that will be what they want to do. And so I think the venues are where we've experimented with that, with continuing to bring the elite and the professional and the best, with the young and the aspiring, and sort of have those moments of sparks. I think we are a good example of how to do it well, and I think that's because we knew that we had ambitions, and again the we is local authorities, local communities, government and London government sort of almost tagging along, because these are long-formed ambitions, that Stratford was going to be a place that would be, yes, nice to live in, but would be a business location. So we knew kind of what we wanted, and we knew it was going to be extraordinarily difficult to get anywhere near it, because the public sector investment wasn't there, the private sector didn't particularly want to know. And we also knew, actually, that even if we did achieve our ambitions, the kind of spectre of Canary Wharf was that nobody around here expected to benefit from such investment and such change. And frankly, nobody really worked very hard with businesses to say, if you're locating in this area, we want you here because you're going to make a difference to the people who live here. So, nobody really expected that. And so I think when the idea for the Olympics came along, we should always remind ourselves that the John the Baptist of the Olympic Games was Richard Sumray, who's well known to the University of East London. It was Richard who sort of tramped the streets and came into the doors of all of our offices and whatever it was back in 98 and 99 and said 2012 Games. And it was this sort of vision that it could help us to do the thing we already wanted to do, which was to make this a special part of London with a strong business emphasis. And so I think the extent to which the Games has been successful is that we knew what we wanted, and we knew we wanted the Games to help us to do it. Whereas there are some cities, I think, host cities, who really said, and again, you lot know more than I do because you've studied this in great detail, but at UEL. But there are host cities whose view has been, oh, we'll get the games, and then a couple of years after they've had it, they wonder why they did it, or start trying to think about what it was for, whereas we did it entirely the other way around. And I do think this, again, I do think this sort of idea that we wanted young people living around here to look upon change as exciting and the bringer of opportunity. And we kind of figured that the Olympics and the Olympic spirit was something we could grab hold of to say to young people, to get them excited and then to get interested in the jobs that were coming. And I you know, I think one detects quite a lot of that still around, certainly an attitude of youngsters, a can-do attitude. So the expectation that opportunity is for them, and we just have to make sure that all of us together, been here, those who've been here for 100 years, like you lot, or those who are moving in next week, you know, is that everybody remembers that that's the agenda we're behind. You know, it is about the regeneration of the entire community for everyone who lives here, and we haven't finished that yet.